What if the version of the transatlantic slave trade you learned in school, the one neatly packaged in textbooks and summarized in dates, is only the prologue? What if the real story, the raw, unvarnished truth, lives not in dusty archives but in the living memory of a people? I spent the last month in Ghana and Benin, not in air-conditioned libraries, but sitting under the shade of ancient mango trees. I was with men and women, elders whose very presence felt like a bridge to another time. Their great-grandparents, you see, weren't just names in a historical ledger. They watched the brutal raids unfold, counted the ominous ships appearing on the horizon, and tenderly, painfully, buried the broken bodies of those left behind. Their memories don't reside in academic papers or meticulously footnoted research. They live in the rhythmic pulse of proverbs, the haunting melodies of lullabies, and the hushed, urgent warnings whispered from one generation to the next. These aren't just stories, they're living history, breathing lessons etched into the soul of a continent. Today, I'm going to pass 5 of those warnings on to a UN changed, unsoftened, and delivered in their exact, potent words. Akea, trust me, you'll want to keep listening because the last secret, the very last one, doesn't just add a chapter to the story you think you know. It flips the entire narrative on its head. It might just change how you see the world and history forever. Nana Essie, 93 years old, her face a roadmap of a century lived, leaned heavily on her intricately carved walking stick. Though soft with age, carried the weight of generations. The whip cracked first. She told me, her eyes distant. Then the drum followed. Always remember that. She was speaking of a day in 1826, a seemingly joyous day. Her village, like many others, had been invited to a harvest dance, a celebration of community and bounty. Warriors from a neighboring kingdom arrived, not with weapons openly displayed, but with rattling anklets, gourds brimming with local beer, and smiles that seemed genuine, welcoming. The music swelled, a vibrant, intoxicating rhythm that filled the air, moving bodies in a communal trance. As the tempo reached its most feverish, its most exhilarating peak, the visitors, those smiling guests, drew hidden blades. In a terrifying, seamless motion, they chained the strongest dancers, the most vibrant members of the community, and marched them, still disoriented by the sudden shift from revelry to terror to the coast. The British agents, waiting impatiently at a Namabu fort, simply recorded that night's horrific events as a routine purchase. Just another transaction. Na's grandmother, a girl of 12 then, was among those sold. Her price: 1 umbrella, 2 flintlock muskets, and a keg of rum. Life, a future, a lineage, exchanged for trinkets. The real trick, you see, wasn't overt violence. It was celebration turned into a brutal, inescapable net. European ledgers, those cold, calculating documents, conveniently listed the captives as war prisoners, a sanitized term designed to justify their actions. But the oral tale, passed down through Nana Essie's family, keeps the crucial detail the scribes erased. The betrayal happened mid-dance, mid-laugh, mid-embrace. It was a shattering of trust, a desecration of community. Remember that. Truly remember it. The next time you hear the complex horrors of slavery summed up in that facile, often weaponized phrase, Africans sold Africans, it was never that simple. Sometimes the seller wasn't a distant warlord. Sometimes the seller was the person you were dancing with, the one you trusted, the one whose hand you held just moments before the world collapsed. It was a system that exploited existing rivalries, yes, but it often shattered the very fabric of community from within, leaving scars far deeper than any chain. Cape Coast Castle. Tour guides, with their well-rehearsed narratives, speak of dungeons, of suffering, of the door of no return. But the elders, they speak of something else entirely. They speak of a nursery. Inside the female cell, a place of unimaginable despair, babies born to nursing mothers were, with chilling regularity, taken to the courtyard. There, under the indifferent glare of the sun, they were weighed. Not for health, not for life, but as calibration waits for gold balances. If a tiny, innocent body tipped the scale just right, the gold being weighed was judged accurate. If not, it was swapped for a heavier infant. The English factors, those meticulous record keepers, had a clinical term for this unspeakable practice: tarring the scales, a technical term for an act of monstrous inhumanity. The villagers, however, had a far more visceral, far more accurate name for it. They called it the hunger that eats the small. No official shipment manifest, no colonial dispatch ever lists this horror. It survives only because great-grandmothers, even today, still rock their empty arms, a phantom weight forever etched into their memory, while singing the same haunting, sorrowful line. If you hear a baby laugh in the castle, the fort is hungry again. I walked that courtyard at dawn, the air heavy with a silence that felt ancient and profound. The stones beneath my feet were permanently darkened, not by time alone, but by something far more sinister. It's where blood, innocent blood, seeped into the very mortar, becoming one with the structure itself. You won't find a plaque telling that story, no polite historical marker. But if you ask the old sweeper, the man whose quiet dignity belies the horrors he tends to daily, he'll point to that indelible discoloration, and in a voice barely above a whisper, he'll tell you that is not rust. It's a testament to a truth too painful for official history, a truth carried in the very stones and in the hearts of those who remember. It's a reminder of the absolute dehumanization that was the transatlantic slave trade, where even the most vulnerable were reduced to mere instruments of commerce. In 1860, on the eve of the American Civil War, the schooner Clotilda smuggled 110 captives into Alabama, making it the last known slave ship to arrive in the United States. Among them was Casola, later renamed Cujo Lewis, whose powerful story of survival and longing for home has become a poignant part of American history. But what the textbooks often omit, what the mainstream narrative frequently overlooks, is that he wasn't the only survivor who desperately tried to come home. There was a 15-year-old boy named Ajanaku, kidnapped from his village. He endured the horrors of the Middle Passage and the brutality of plantation life. But Ajanaku was a survivor, a dreamer, and a fighter. escaped his Alabama plantation in 1865, the year of emancipation, a moment of theoretical freedom. For 13 grueling years, he worked the decks of a merchant schooner, saving every single penny, every hard-earned coin, with one singular, burning purpose: to buy passage back to West Africa. Imagine that unwavering resolve, that unyielding hope. When his calloused feet finally touched the familiar, yet now alien, sand of Ouida, a place he'd only known in dreams and fading memories, his first, most urgent question was to see his mother. He yearned for her embrace, for the smell of her cooking, for the sound of her voice. But the village, he remembered, his home, had been burned during the devastating palm oil wars of the 1870s. The land was scarred, the people scattered. No one recognized his name. No one remembered the boy who had been stolen so long ago. Anaku, heartbroken but not entirely broken, wandered the coast, a ghost in his own land, repeating his childhood nickname, a desperate plea for recognition. Until, one day, a toothless old woman, her eyes filled with an ancient sorrow, spat out a groundnut shell and said, "Ka." Her voice raspy. Only ghosts answer to that name now. The finality of those words must have been a crushing blow. He never found his mother. He never found the home he'd fought so hard to return to. Instead, Aganaku built a small, solitary hut behind the Catholic mission, a testament to his resilience. He taught himself to read Yoruba again, painstakingly reconnecting with the language of his lost heritage. And every Friday, a ritual born of longing and remembrance, he would nail a tin plate to a breadfruit tree, a makeshift mirror, so the spirits of his ancestors, his lost family, could find a reflection of themselves. That tin plate, now dented and weathered by nearly 2 centuries of relentless rain, is still there. The lesson my host gave me beside it, her voice filled with a quiet wisdom: freedom is the ship. Home is the mirage. Aganaku's story, a profound saga of longing and loss, never made it into a single American archive, not in the official histories. But it is carried, vibrant and alive, by a line of market women who, to this day, refuse to sell breadfruit on Fridays, a silent, powerful acknowledgement of the boy who came home to find no one. It's a stark reminder that the journey didn't end with emancipation. For many, the journey *to* healing, *to* home, was just beginning, and often it was a journey that led to another kind of heartbreak. Imagine a kingdom, a powerful, proud empire like Dahomey in the 1840s, grappling with the relentless drain of its people to the coast. King Gezo, in a desperate, brutal attempt to control the narrative, to quell the widespread anguish, and perhaps even his own complicity, issued a chilling decree: anyone caught weeping, openly mourning for relatives taken to the coast, would join them in chains. The intent was clear: silence the grief, silence the guilt, silence the memory. It was an attempt to erase the emotional cost of the trade. But grief, true grief, cannot be so easily legislated away. Instead, the mourners, a people pushed to the brink, invented a remarkable, defiant act of resistance, the song of the bird. They began to whistle melodies, intricate and seemingly innocent, that sounded like common field calls, the sounds of everyday life. Yet, within each note, within each subtle inflection, carried a name of the missing, a memory of a loved one stolen. It was a language of sorrow, a symphony of remembrance hidden in plain sight. Even today, if you walk through the fields of present-day Benin, Togo, and Ghana, you'll find elders, their faces etched with the wisdom of ages, still whistling those same tunes while planting corn, while tending their crops. I asked a farmer, his hands gnarled by a lifetime of labor, what he was singing. He paused, looked at me with a knowing glint in his eye, and translated, "Even the wind cannot be fined for listening." It was a profound statement of defiance, a testament to the enduring power of memory and the human spirit's refusal to be silenced. That custom of coded grief, that ingenious method of smuggling sorrow past the watchful eyes of oppressors, spread across the region. If you walk a border village at dusk, when the light softens and the day's labor eases, you will hear men returning from the fields, whistling full complex sentences that your ear, an outsider's ear, simply cannot parse. But watch closely. Every grandmother's shoulder, every elder's slight nod drops in instant, heartbreaking recognition. They hear the names, they feel the loss, they share the collective memory. The transatlantic trade didn't just remove bodies from the continent. It forced the ones left behind, the survivors, to redesign sorrow itself. Grief, that most fundamental human emotion, had to masquerade as music, as the call of a bird, as a simple field tune, just to survive. It's a powerful reminder that history isn't just about what happened, but about how people found ways to endure, to remember, and to resist, even in the face of unimaginable tyranny. Here's where your textbook typically ends the chapter, right? Abolition in 1807, Emancipation in 1833, Juneteenth in 1865. A neat, tidy conclusion. Thought a historical period closed and filed away. But here's what the elders, those keepers of the deeper truth, told me. Their voices firm and unwavering. The trade didn't end. It simply changed currency. Instead of crude iron chains, they used the invisible, yet equally binding, chains of credit. Instead of crowded, disease-ridden ships, they used the deceptively simple lines of contracts. After the legal transatlantic trade was officially closed, European agents didn't just pack up and go home. Oh no, they stayed on the coast, evolving their tactics. They began offering labor recruitment loans to African rulers, playing on existing power structures and economic needs. The proposition was enticing, insidious. Bring us 50 men, and we will fund your army. We will provide you with modern weapons, with the resources you need to secure your kingdom. These loans, the elders insisted, were never, ever meant to be repaid. They were a trap, a meticulously laid snare. Default, which was inevitable given the impossible terms, meant signing over precious mineral rights, conceding lucrative palm oil monopolies, and eventually, tragically, handing over entire swaths of land, entire nations, to colonial powers. The very village that once sold war captives for rifles, thinking they were gaining an advantage, soon found itself mortgaged, indebted to the same European traders. Not for people this time, but for infrastructure. It never asked for a railway line designed not for their benefit, but to extract resources more efficiently. In the elders' stark, irrefutable verdict, the whip left the hand and entered the ledger. The physical brutality of the slave trade morphed into the economic subjugation of colonialism. That debt pipeline, cunningly constructed and ruthlessly enforced, fed directly into the infamous colonial scramble of the 1880s, when European powers carved up Africa with arbitrary lines on a map. So, when you line up the dates, the abolition of the transatlantic slave trade, followed swiftly by the acquisition of African colonies, you see the profound, terrifying second secret. One financed the other. The immense ill-gotten profits from the last illegal shipments of human beings weren't just stashed away. They were laundered, invested into the very infrastructure that would allow for the systematic plundering of Africa's vast natural resources. This new infrastructure, these railways and ports, moved raw materials even faster, even more efficiently than the human cargo that preceded them. The same family firms, the same European mercantile houses that owned the *Clotilda*, that profited from the forced labor of enslaved people, were often the very same ones who invested heavily in the first railroads snaking from the Dahomey interior to the coast. These rails, initially, carried peanuts, then cotton, then the black gold of oil. The elders don't call this history. They call it the long second voyage. It's a continuation, a metamorphosis of exploitation. If you truly want to understand why some African nations still struggle with economic dependency, why they still ship raw materials on terms dictated by European powers, you need to ask a critical, uncomfortable question. Who holds the original promissory notes? 'Cause the elders will tell you those notes aren't gathering dust in some forgotten drawer. They are locked away in the impenetrable safes of Liverpool, Bordeaux, and Lisbon. And the interest on that original unholy debt has been compounding silently, relentlessly, since the day the last captive stepped off the ship. It's a legacy of exploitation that continues to reverberate, defining global inequalities even today. I asked each elder at the end of our conversations, it's the same closing question, a question that felt both vital and heavy. Why keep these stories alive? Why continue to bear witness to such pain? And the answer, almost word for word, resonated with a chilling, undeniable truth, because the day we stop repeating them is the day they start happening again. It's a warning, a prophecy, and a call to action all rolled into one. So, I repeat them to you. The dance that lured, that betrayed, that turned celebration into a trap. Here, the fort that weighed babies, that reduced innocent life to a calibration tool. The boy, Ajanaku, who paid for a home that no longer knew him, a poignant symbol of enduring loss. The whistles that smuggled grief, that defied tyranny with coded melodies. And the loans that swallowed continents, the insidious financial instruments that extended the chains of slavery into the bonds of colonialism. None of these profound, heartbreaking truths live in colonial dispatches in neat academic footnotes. They live vibrant and visceral in mouths, in the voices of the elders, and now they live in yours. Share them the way the elders shared them with me. Eye to eye, voice steady, no footnotes, no apologies, just the raw, powerful truth. If this channel, if this community we're building keeps growing, I promise you, we will go back. We will return and record every whistle, every dented tin plate, every darkened courtyard stone, until the archive of these forgotten truths is too heavy for denial to lift, too undeniable for silence to overcome. Hit subscribe if you want to travel with me on that next journey, if you want to be a part of bringing these vital stories to light. And if you know an elder anywhere in the world with a story the textbooks missed, a truth that needs to be heard, send me an email. My inbox is ready, my passport is out, and those ancient mango trees, guardians of memory, are waiting.